Realise that you were such
A twat.
a pugilist.
A pugilist.
I was just looking at all of your books.
Yeah.
There's so much history in here. So
Well, there is, because I'm ancient.
No, you're not.
Right, we starting?
We are starting, but you know what I'm like. Let me just
Come
put
on.
my timer on to make sure I don't take up
Let me put mine on as well.
15 minutes. Yeah.
too much of your time.
No pressure, no pressure. 14 minutes, 38 seconds.
I like pressure. First of all, Frank, thank you for having me at the headquarters.
It's a pleasure.
It's an absolute honour. And before we start, I just want to say, you're a mover and a shaker. I was on my first...
I'm a shaky mover.
You're a mover and a shaker. I was on my first box academy, Warren Boxing Management. You managed to sort it out. So I wanted to say a personal thank you because they let me host the show.
You're welcome.
So that's down to you.
Good.
Somebody that says...
I'm glad you done it and enjoyed it.
Can't wait for the next one. But Frank, I was talking about, I want to get to know you, the history behind Frank Warren. And why I'm saying this is you guys are like a library. You've got so much information, so much history, and we don't tend to appreciate that. So I want to know, because you're not just a boxing promoter, there's a picture over there with Frank Sinatra. Talk to me about that. You actually put on a musical event as well.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I promoted him. I promoted his shows, yeah. Many years, when was that? That was
1908, was it 1990?
Yeah, 1990, yeah, did his shows, yeah. Done a load of people. When we built London Arena with Pavarotti, everybody played there, yeah. Pink Floyd, a lot of them played there.
Your interest with music then? Because I've
always been a music nut since I was a kid. You know, going back to when I was a kid. I mean, I'll probably go and see a band play at least every 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, I'm always. I mean, I'm always going to see things. I'm going to see the Blind Boys of Alabama. I think it's in a couple of weeks' time. I'm seeing Daryl Hall. He's playing. I'm going to see Leon Bridges at Alexandra Palace. I've got a load of things coming up I'm going to see.
So we've got music, we've got boxing, we've got football. There's pictures there with you. Obviously, it's now King Charles, but obviously it was Prince Charles there. I mean, the royals. You
used to go to school with me.
Frank, don't start pulling me legs so early in the afternoon.
He was my fag.
You're just intrinsically linked to like everything London, everything UK. It's almost like it starts with Frank Warren.
I know about that. I've been blessed. I've been lucky over the years. I've worked hard. I've made some luck and been lucky. I've been involved in some good times. I owned Bedford Rugby Club. I was the chairman of Bedford Rugby Club. We took them over. They were bottom of Division 2, and we got them up the first year with the team that we built, with the manager we had, Jeff Cook, who was a former England manager. We brought a lot of good players in. They came up. Yeah, but I've had a few things go on in my life. Some successful, a few fell over, but yeah, all good.
But you're prepared to take risks?
Well, my dad was a bookmaker. I worked at the races when I was a kid, so I suppose I've got that gambling thing in my blood, and yeah, I do. I roll the dice. I haven't got a problem rolling the dice.
Lessons learned then. I mean, boxing is where you found your home. Boxing, I guess, it's the snakes and ladders. It's the roller coaster ride of all the sports, because it's probably the most unstable, yet probably one of the strongest sports that we've got in the UK. Globally, actually, not in the UK.
Boxing is different than most sports. You know, like you look at any other sports, they have leagues, so they play each week and whatever. You can lose, you can bring substitutes on, somebody gets injured. One-on-one, like golf matches, tennis, they do the same thing. They keep playing. You can lose, you can win, you can lose, but you keep going. Boxing, you keep losing, it's all over unless you want to become a journeyman. So you've got to be good at what you've got to be good at. For a promoter, you've got to make sure that you find the right guys to invest money and your time in and your belief in, and that's part of that's part, I suppose, of the art and the skill of it. I'm not too bad at making the right fights at the right times. I've been fairly decent at that over the years with some of the major names in British and world boxing. So But then again, at my age, and I'm doing it, still doing it at my age, if I don't know now, I'm never going to know, am I?
The thing is with yourself, we live in an age where it's about the numbers, it's all of that. But you still have this old school mentality where you prefer talent over maybe like the superstardom of something. It's like you want to build that person from not necessarily the rock bottom, but from the bottom and build them through.
I get more pleasure out of that.
Okay.
I look at guys who've gone on been on the podium squads, who've done well, but people who go to the Olympic Games, and look at the success rate of people coming from the Olympics and winning world titles, and then look at guys whose face didn't fit, like Joe Calvadaki's face didn't fit, Ricky Hatton, Pro Young, Nassim Hamid. I can think of quite a few of them. None of those guys, Frank Bruno, none of them went on fought in the Olympics or anything, and they all become world champions, and good quality world champions. And some of them I was involved in the early stages of their career, bringing them through and making their matches and helping develop their talent. And that's been, that's been really been a pressure. Same thing with Daniel Dubois. A lot of people wrote him off for some reason. I don't know why they did, but they did. And he's on a high at the moment, and hopefully we're going to announce a big fight for him soon.
Interesting. What is it like to back someone when the public is against them?
I don't think it's the public. I think it emanates from the business that we're in. There are people who in the trade will know of a good youngster. There are people in the trade who, because he signs with me, or if he signs with, I don't know, Eddie or somebody else, that they won't like him because he's gone with him instead of going with me, or vice versa, which is pretty pathetic when you think about it. And I can mention a couple of names. You get people like that who've got that in their head, and that's quite unfortunate. And for some reason, some people listen to them. I mean, I will mention one name, is Carl Frock, for example. I mean, coming out some crap the other day about Daniel Dubois. He's, why hasn't he been heard of, and what's he not done? Is he something to do with some drug tests? He's going to get he's going to get sued over that. Yeah, he said something about drugs or something. It makes you think or something. I'm going to kick his arse over that. He is one person, I think, in boxing. I've never heard him say a good word about a fighter. When he was a fighter, I mean, he had a downer on Amir Khan. A downer on him. I think that's because when we took Amir, who was in a 4-rounder, to Nottingham, and he sold Nottingham out, and he came from Nottingham, I think he sold 3,000 tickets or 2,000 tickets there. But he's always got a downer on people, and I don't get that, and I don't understand it, especially being a former fighter. It's like a jealousy thing. It's like a green eye all the time. But don't forget, he sold 80,000 tickets at Wembley, but he hasn't got the record. Tyson's got that.
Tyson's got that. Another fight. I know that when you talk about fighters, and I'm going to keep Tyson out of it because he's retired at the moment, so all the best to him. When you look at the plethora of fighters that you've had, and I know we're not supposed to have favourites, Frank, but who would you say of times that have gone by, that they've retired now, not including Tyson, because it will always be him, I get that. Who would you say was the fighter that was the most easiest to work with, and that was a pleasure to work with out of them? There could have been 5, but I want your top one.
There's lots. I mean, the one, I've got to think, there's a load of them that I've worked with have done really well. And at times, there's been it happens, doesn't it? You have a split up, and then afterwards, I mean, I can think of Nigel Benn, I can think of Naz, Joe Calzaghe, all of them after going elsewhere, all wish they never, and in their books and said publicly, they wish they never had done that. But sometimes the grass is greener on the other side, or they think it is, but it's green because of the bullshit people give them, and it makes it green. One of my most favourite fighters that I work with, and I've worked with some great guys, I'm not going to mention all the names, but one of them that really springs to mind every time is Enzo Maccarinelli.
Okay, talk to me about him.
Because he was such a good bloke to work with. Really, and we had some hard times. I remember when we started Box Nation, and there were the investors there. We were the main investor. There was an Indian production company who owned also a couple of big cricket teams in India. We all put our money in, and there was a Russian, and despite sending us messages saying that the money that had been wired, we never ever got it. It was one of those always in the post. And it left a hole of around 20 million, yet we still run the shows. I should have done what other people would have done, which would have been postpone it or cancel the show and wait another few months, but we didn't because people were in training, and we did that. Enzo was brilliant all the way through. He can't remember, don't worry about it. He got it into it, and and someone bleated because they got paid a couple of weeks or 2 or 3 weeks late, and I was a bit annoyed because we went out on a limb. I did not have to do that. I could have said, you know what, cancel it, but I didn't do it. But then no good deed goes unpunished, and that annoyed me at the time. But that's business. We're in business. Somebody fights, they got to get paid. Every fighter who's ever worked with me has been paid. They have to get paid. It's the toughest of all professions. And of course they got to get paid, but they also got to understand where the money comes from. And when what we was doing in those early days was running shows, and they were free to air. There was no income from anywhere. 6 months free to air. Every show that put on, that money come from our pocket, and the ticket money. And ticket money, as we all know, doesn't cover the cost of a show, nowhere near it. Doesn't cover the cost sometimes of one of the main event, one of the fighters, not that both of them. So, and you look back and I get it, and I look, and I can look back, and you asked that question. And as far as Enzo, why springs to mind. One, he's a lovely fellow, he's got a lovely family, and for me, there was never an issue. It's just a handshake job with him. It meant something.
Yep.
I come from that old era where you shake somebody's hand and that's a deal. A lot of people now, handshake's not worth the paper it's written on. So that's where we are. But Enzo was brilliant, real brilliant. And there's been a few guys over time. Don't get me wrong, but he was brilliant. Steve Collins was really good to work with, and there's lots of them over the years. But decent people, real good people.
Nigel Benn, obviously, you've touched on him being one of your fighters as well. Obviously, his son goes in against Chris Eubank Jr. this weekend. A lot around that fight, Frank, and I want to ask for your expert promotional eyes on that fight and what you think about it and how you see the fight playing out.
When the fight was first, was it a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of it because of the weight disparity, but it was what it was, and I got why people bought into it because of the fathers and the rivalry, the facts and all the controversy with the fight getting stopped and the nonsense that's gone on in between. It's obviously quite a big fight now. Get that, and that takes out the thing about the best fighting the best. That's not the best fighting the best. People say we're going to do these shows, we get the best fighting. This is a particular show where that doesn't apply, but it's a fight that's everybody's buying into. They're not the two best fighters in the UK at that weight. They're not. Probably not the two best fighters in London, as far as I'm concerned. But it's got all the attraction that everybody, and the intrigue that people want to see. Who wins it? I hope Conor does.
Okay.
But is Eubank too big for him? He's 35 years of age now, next generation, which gives me a chance to be the next generation too, at least my age. Is he the next generation? I don't know. And if he beats him, you'd expect that because he's the bigger guy. Conor, I haven't seen Conor, at a level to show what he's all about. He may, on the night, look $1 million. I'd like him to win. I'd like to see him win, but we'll see.
We definitely will. Moving forward then, I'd like to say that, in fact, I will cover this actually. I don't really like to do the to-in and fro-in, but I've been catching up on some of the press conference for this week. And I think Ben Shalom and Eddie Hearn have been doing a couple of duet videos. A little bit of a bromance is forming between those two. And I think Ben has alluded to the rise of you being thanks to His Excellency. Basically, he's saying the resurgence of Frank Warren has been down to obviously the helping hand from His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh.
Didn't we put Tyson on at Wembley when we bid 42 million, which is the highest purse bid of all time, against Dillian White, and sell it out as the record-breaking event, biggest event at Wembley before we got involved in Riyadh season, before there was a Riyadh season, as far as boxing is concerned. We did that, I think. Listen, we invested in Daniel Dubois 9 years ago.
God, it's been 9 years.
10 years, yeah. We invested in Moses 3.5 years ago before. So I don't, it's a funny thing, with Ben Shalom, he's always got something to say about something. And it's funny, I was talking about it earlier. Someone mentioned about an interview I'd done the other day. The only time I ever even think about him is like
if we bring it up. Yeah,
he's inconsequential to me, totally inconsequential. I whether he's around or not, we'll see. We'll see if he got what it takes. What I've seen of him and his knowledge of boxing, he can't even write a contract out properly. He doesn't read what he signs. So for me, he's just, I just look at him as being somebody, one of those irritants who just show up every few years, has a TV, how he got the TV contract, I don't know, but I've seen lots of people get TV contracts and disappear over the years because they don't even know what they're doing. And his judgment in what he does sometimes is beyond a joke. And what he does to try and, ingratiate yourself, like what he done with Bacoli last minute. The guy's fighting in a final eliminator for a world title. He pulls him out of that and puts him in at the last minute when saying that he's fit and he's ready to box. When he got in the ring, he looked like he'd been training in his fridge. The size of him, and then what was expected happened. So I don't need his judgment on what I am, because as far as I'm concerned, I think as far as boxing is concerned, I think he's a total fraud. He lies. He can't tell the truth. He lies. He lies about contract. The people he's involved around him. What do I think of him? I don't know where he expects to go. What he does. What he says about me is irrelevant. One thing he is right about, though, I'll give him one thing he's right about. Yeah, of course, what we've done with Riyadh season has been brilliant. It's been brilliant for us. It's been brilliant for everybody involved who's been involved in it. And you know what? That's why they asked us to run the shows out there. Queensbury run the shows. We're running the show on May the 3rd. We're running the shows. We are partners with Seller. They ain't asking Ben Shalom to run the shows because he couldn't run a bath.
And on that note, then, we're going to end on something positive. What I will say, Frank, is I do like, you're sort of like an artist that is able to reinvent himself. You're a bit of, excuse the gender.
Piss artist.
No, you're a bit of the Madonna of boxing. She's able to reinvent herself all the time, even though, obviously, I won't like to see you in fishnets, but you know what I mean.
Well, you haven't seen me in them. You might change your mind. And I'm a better dancer than that.
Really?
Yeah, a bit of break dancing. Forget about it.
We've got to talk about what you've got coming up next. I know I had a little listen. I could hear a little. You're very busy. Queensbury's very busy.
We're very busy. We've got a lot of shows on. We got some great shows on in the UK. We've got the great show we announced at Ipswich with Fabio and Big Baby. That's a great show. That's doing extremely well with tickets. We've got a fantastic show up in Glasgow with ex-double world champion Josh in with Echo. That's a great fight.
It is.
That's a great fight, a great undercard.
Very aggressive fight.
Great sales in Nottingham. Fabulous fight. Anto's coming over there, who's absolutely been brilliant in his last few fights. So he's in there with Lee. And Lee's another former two-time world champion. Fabulous undercard. A lot of local guys there, some very young talent. They're brilliant shows. We're announcing some more. We're announcing a massive show next week. A massive show. A historical show. It's history being made next week.
Any clues, Frank?
It's a big show. And that's what we do. It's where we are, that's what we do. And we plan. It's not just, this is happening now. This is things that we worked on. This is the investment we made from young boxers. I've mentioned with Daniel. And there was a couple of hiccups on the way, but we kept our belief there, kept guiding him. That's what it's all about. It's to keep doing that. And you know, the team we've got, it's not just me, it's the team we've got. You know, I've got my sons involved in different aspects of the business. Francis is a really good manager. He looks after Moses, Sam Noakes, and quite a few other guys. I've got George, who's our CEO. We've got this great team here at Queensbury, a fabulous team who work together. They live and breathe what we're doing. They're all on the programme. They're big supporters. The loyalty is unbelievable. And that's what makes it so successful. And that's why we're so good at what we do. And we're going to get fighters who are going to get beat. But that's the business we're in. It's winners and losers. You've got to keep evolving. You've got to keep moving forward. You've got to keep investing. You've got to keep making the right fights at the right moment, picking the right matches at the right moment. The best punches are the best time punches. The best matches are the best timed matches. Finding that guy who may just not be there now, and your guy's ready to take over the mantle. And we're not bad at doing that. And we've got, as I say, we've got a fabulous team, and it's going from strength to strength. And me, I could retire tomorrow.
Nah, don't do that.
Well, I could retire tomorrow, and I know this business would go on much bigger and much better. It would do. I don't want to do it because I love it. I enjoy it. I like the cut and thrust of it all. I like these wannabes who can go and slap their ass every now and then and put them back in their place. I love all that. I like what's happened through His Excellency and Riyadh season and the great events. I like what's happened with the understanding now that's been built between Eddie's company Matchroom and ourselves, which has been great for boxing. The relationship him and my son George have got, which I'm really pleased with, and I wish that had happened years ago. It didn't happen probably because his old man and me did not get on.
I'd like to see you two together, you know.
Who?
You and Barry Hearn together, like just across the table from each other. I'd really like to see that and just lay everything out and talk about the good old days and talk about where it's ended up now.
Well,
maybe.
Where we are now, and where we've ended up is we're all in a good place, and it is a good place, and it's exciting times. British boxing's on a high. Who'd ever thought when I started out in boxing that other than one man at the moment, one man in Usyk, who'd ever thought that the British heavyweight scene would be the scene? It was always America.
It was.
And that's how British fighters didn't win world heavyweight titles. They went in bravely and valiantly challenged for them, but they didn't win them. And now look where we are. It's brilliant.
Final question from myself then. Daniel Dubois ordered to fight Derek Chisora.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that, if you can. Talk to us about that.
Well, they've ordered it. We'll see what happens in the meantime. You know, I would love Daniel to be in with Usyk for the 4 belts on the line. I'd love to get that fight on in the UK. If we could do that, that is history, because the 4 belts have never, ever been contested in the UK. It'd be the first ever unification. Another history-making moment. And we can do that, I'd be delighted. And by the way, I fancy my man to win that if we can.
We love it. Frank Warren, thank you so much for your time. You've got to give me a quick guided tour, and then I'll leave you alone before I get thrown out by Matt. Look, he's giving me the evils. Look.
Right, that's
Thank
Matt.
you.
People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.